The room fell silent except for the sharp echoing laughter that ricocheted off the sleek glass walls of the office. Clara's fingers tightened around the edge of her leather portfolio, knuckles whitening as she stood there in front of him, her boss, Mr. Grayson. His polished mahogany desk gleamed under the fluorescent lights, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside her chest. 10%? He scoffed again, leaning back in his chair with an air of mockery that made her blood boil. Clara, do you know what 10% means for this company? For me. He gestured vaguely at the sprawling view behind him, where skyscrapers jutted into the gray sky like monuments to ambition and power. She swallowed hard, forcing herself not to look away from his condescending gaze. It's not about what it means for you, she said evenly, though her voice trembled slightly. It's about fairness. I've been here for 15 years, Mr. Grayson. 15 years of late nights, weekends spent on reports, mentoring new hires who now earn more than I do because they negotiated better starting salaries. His smirk didn't falter. If anything, it deepened. And yet, here we are. You haven't exactly proven yourself indispensable, have you? The words hit her like a slap across the face. Indispensable? After all those years? All those sacrifices? She wanted to scream, to throw the folder down and walk out right then and there, but something stopped her. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was desperation. Or maybe it was the flicker of anger igniting in her chest, whispering promises of revenge. Instead of leaving, she straightened her posture, letting silence stretch between them until it became unbearable. When she finally spoke, her tone was calm but laced with steel. You'll regret this. He laughed again, louder this time, clearly amused by her audacity. Oh, Clara. Don't be dramatic. We both know you're not going anywhere. But as she turned and walked out of his office, closing the door softly behind her, she knew one thing for certain: he couldn't have been more wrong. That night, Clara sat alone in her tiny apartment, staring at the blinking cursor on her laptop screen. The city buzzed outside her window, oblivious to the turmoil brewing within her. Her reflection stared back at her from the darkened glass, a woman in her early 40s with sharp cheekbones softened by crow's feet earned through years of smiling when she didn't feel like it. Her hair, streaked with silver strands she refused to dye, was pulled into a messy bun atop her head. She looked tired, defeated. But beneath that exhaustion simmered something else entirely, a quiet rage, a determination she hadn't felt in years. She opened a blank document and began typing furiously, her fingers flying over the keyboard as if possessed. Ideas poured out of her, memories of projects she'd spearheaded, strategies she'd developed, clients she'd brought in whose names were now splashed across billboards and magazine covers. Each line was a reminder of her worth, a testament to the value she had provided to Grayson and Company without ever being properly acknowledged. When she finished, she leaned back in her chair and reread what she'd written. It wasn't just a resume, it was a declaration of war. A promise to herself that she wouldn't let someone else define her worth ever again. The next morning, she woke up with a plan. She showered, dressed in her sharpest suit, the navy blue one that always made her feel invincible, and marched straight to the coffee shop around the corner from work. There, sitting at a corner table with a latte and a croissant, was Marcus Reed, the CEO of Apex Solutions, Grayson's biggest competitor. They had met once before at a networking event, and while their interaction had been brief, she remembered how impressed he seemed by her insights during a panel discussion. As she approached his table, her heart pounded wildly in her chest. This was reckless. Dangerous, even. But she reminded herself why she was doing this, not just for herself, but for every other woman who had been dismissed, undervalued, or laughed at simply because she dared to ask for what she deserved. Marcus looked up from his phone as she slid into the seat across from him. His eyebrows shot up in surprise. Clara? What brings you here? I need 5 minutes of your time, she said, cutting straight to the chase. And I think you'll find it worth your while. He studied her for a moment, curiosity replacing his initial shock. Then he nodded slowly. All right. 5 minutes. What followed was a pitch so compelling, so meticulously crafted, that even Clara surprised herself. She laid out her vision for expanding Apex's market share, highlighted gaps in their current strategy, and outlined exactly how she could help them dominate their industry, all while keeping her tone confident and composed. By the time she finished, Marcus was leaning forward, his elbows resting on the table, eyes alight with interest. This is impressive, he admitted, tapping his pen against his coffee cup. But why now? Why us? Clara hesitated, weighing her words carefully. Let's just say I've realized my talents are being wasted where I am. And I want to work somewhere that values innovation and ambition, not ego. Marcus chuckled, clearly intrigued. Well, Clara, I can't argue with that. Let me run some numbers, talk to HR, and get back to you. But I have a feeling we'll be able to make something happen. As she left the coffee shop, Clara allowed herself a small smile. For the first time in years, she felt like she was taking control of her life. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Clara threw herself into preparing for her potential move to Apex. She spent hours researching their operations, studying their competitors, and brainstorming ways to bring fresh ideas to the table. At the same time, she kept up appearances at Grayson and Company, ensuring no one suspected her growing dissatisfaction or her secret meetings with Marcus. One evening, as she packed up her things to leave the office, she overheard two junior employees gossiping near the water cooler. Their voices carried easily through the empty hallway. "Did you hear about Clara?" one of them whispered conspiratorially. "Apparently, she's thinking about leaving." "No way," the other replied, incredulous. "She's been here forever. Who would hire her after all these years?" The comment stung more than Clara cared to admit. She paused mid-step, gripping the strap of her bag tightly. Did people really see her that way? As someone stuck in the past, irrelevant, replaceable? Before she could stop herself, she turned around and walked toward them, her heels clicking ominously against the tiled floor. Both women froze, eyes wide with guilt. "You know," Clara said coolly, "it's funny how people assume experience equates to obsolescence. Maybe instead of speculating about my career choices, you should focus on learning from someone who's actually been where you want to go." Without waiting for a response, she turned on her heel and strode away, leaving the two women gaping after her. As satisfying as the moment was, it also served as a sobering reminder of the uphill battle she faced, not just that night. As she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Clara thought about the countless times she'd been underestimated throughout her life. From teachers who told her she'd never excel in math to colleagues who dismissed her ideas in meetings, she had spent decades proving people wrong. And now, standing on the precipice of potentially the biggest leap of her career, she realized something profound. She didn't care what anyone else thought anymore. Not Grayson, not those junior employees, not even the doubters lurking in her own mind. Because for the first time in a long time, she believed in herself. Days turned into weeks, and soon Clara found herself sitting across from Marcus once again, this time in his sleek modern office at Apex Solutions. The skyline stretched endlessly beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, a panorama that somehow felt less intimidating than the view from Grayson's office. "So," Marcus began, folding his hands on the desk in front of him, "we've reviewed your proposal, and I have to say, I'm impressed. Really impressed." He smiled, and for the first time in ages, Clara felt a genuine sense of validation wash over her. "We'd like to offer you a position as Senior Vice President of Strategy, with a salary increase of 25%. Her breath caught in her throat. 25%. More than double what she had asked for at Grayson and Company. She fought to keep her expression neutral, though inside, she was screaming with triumph. "I appreciate the offer," she said carefully, choosing her words with precision. "But before I accept, I need to know, are you hiring me because you genuinely believe in my abilities, or because you see me as a weapon against Grayson?" Marcus tilted his head, considering her question. "Both," he admitted frankly. "Your skills speak for themselves, Clara. But let's be honest, you leaving Grayson will send a message. One he won't forget anytime soon." A slow, satisfied smile spread across her face. "In that case," she said, extending her hand across the desk, "I accept." As they shook hands, sealing the deal, Clara felt a surge of adrenaline unlike anything she'd experienced before. This wasn't just a job offer, it was a chance to rewrite her story, to prove to herself and everyone else that she was far from finished. But as she stepped out of Marcus's office and into the bustling corridors of Apex Solutions, she couldn't shake the nagging thought that this victory came with strings attached. Strings tied directly to Grayson and Company, to the man who had laughed in her face and dismissed her dreams. And while she relished the idea of watching him squirm, she also knew that revenge rarely came without consequences. Little did she know, the real drama was only just beginning. Clara's first week at Apex Solutions was a whirlwind of introductions, strategy meetings, and late nights poring over data. The energy in the office was electric, everyone moved with purpose, driven by ambition and innovation. It was a stark contrast to the stagnant atmosphere she'd left behind at Grayson and Company, where complacency seemed to seep from the walls like mold. Here, people listened when she spoke. Her ideas weren't just acknowledged, they were celebrated. But despite the excitement, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking a tightrope. Every decision she made felt heavier than it should, every conversation laced with unspoken implications. Marcus had been clear about his intentions. He wanted her not only for her skills but also as a weapon against Grayson. And while part of her reveled in the thought of turning the tables on her former boss, another part worried about what this battle might cost her. It didn't take long for word to spread. On her third day at Apex, an email landed in her inbox from none other than Mr. Grayson himself. The subject line read simply, "A word." Her stomach dropped as she opened it. "Clara, I heard about your new position. While I'm sure you're thrilled with the change, I hope you'll consider how damaging this move could be, for both of us. Let's discuss before things escalate further. Best regards, Grayson." Her hands hovered over the keyboard as anger bubbled up inside her. Damaging? For him, maybe. Not for her. She deleted the email without responding, but the weight of his words lingered. He knew exactly what he was doing, trying to guilt her into backing down, appealing to some misplaced sense of loyalty she no longer owed him. By Friday, rumors were already swirling throughout the industry. A former senior employee leaving Grayson and Company for their biggest rival? It was juicy gossip, the kind that fueled boardroom speculation and water-cooler chatter. Clara tried to ignore it, focusing instead on the task at hand, dismantling Grayson's empire one strategic move at a time. The real challenge came during her first major presentation at Apex. Clara stood at the front of the conference room, flanked by Marcus and a team of eager analysts, as she unveiled her plan to poach several key clients from Grayson and Company. She had spent countless hours researching their vulnerabilities, identifying accounts that were underserved or dissatisfied. Now, armed with data and a pitch so compelling it practically sold itself, she laid out her vision for flipping those clients to Apex. As you can see, she concluded, gesturing to the final slide, a bold projection of increased revenue, this isn't just an opportunity for growth. It's a chance to redefine the competitive landscape. The room erupted into applause, and Clara allowed herself a small smile. But as she glanced at Marcus, she noticed something odd. His expression wasn't one of triumph, it was cautious, almost wary. When the meeting adjourned, he pulled her aside. "That was brilliant," he said, lowering his voice. "But we need to tread carefully. Grayson isn't going to take this lying down." "I know," Clara replied, her tone firm. "And frankly, I don't care what he does. We're playing offense now, Marcus. If he wants to retaliate, let him try." Marcus nodded slowly, though his eyes betrayed a hint of unease. "Just stay vigilant. He's unpredictable." Unpredictable. The word echoed in Clara's mind as she returned to her desk. She had always known Grayson was ruthless, but unpredictable? That was new. And unsettling. Over the next few weeks, Clara threw herself into executing her plan. She reached out to contacts she'd cultivated over the years, leveraging relationships she'd built with clients who had grown disillusioned with Grayson's leadership. One by one, they began defecting to Apex, citing everything from better service to more innovative solutions. Each victory was a sweet taste of vindication, a reminder that she was finally being valued for her work. But then, the cracks started to show. It began with subtle sabotage. Files went missing from shared drives. Emails intended for critical stakeholders mysteriously disappeared. At first, Clara chalked it up to technical glitches, but when her assistant reported receiving anonymous threats warning her to back off, she realized the situation was far more serious. One evening, as she worked late in her office, the lights suddenly flickered and died. Her heart raced as she fumbled for her phone, using its flashlight to navigate the darkened space. That's when she saw it, a single sheet of paper taped to her door, illuminated eerily by the glow of her screen. "You've made your point. Stop while you're ahead." Her breath hitched, and for the first time since joining Apex, doubt crept in. Was this Grayson's doing? Or was someone else pulling strings behind the scenes? Determined not to let fear dictate her actions, Clara doubled down on her efforts. She implemented stricter security protocols, ensured all communications were encrypted, and even hired a private investigator to dig into potential leaks within the company. Yet, the attacks continued, growing bolder with each passing day. Then came the incident that changed everything. During a high-stakes negotiation with a major client, one of Grayson's crown jewels, the deal fell through at the last minute. Clara discovered later that confidential information had been leaked to Grayson, allowing him to swoop in and undercut their offer. Furious, she confronted Marcus. "This is unacceptable," she snapped, slamming the report onto his desk. "How did this happen? Who's leaking our strategies?" Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples. "I don't know, Clara. But if we don't figure it out soon, this whole operation could collapse." Collapse. The word hit her like a punch to the gut. All her hard work, all her sacrifices, they were teetering on the edge of ruin. And worse, she couldn't shake the nagging suspicion that she was being set up to take the fall. As she stormed out of Marcus's office, her mind raced with questions. Who could she trust? Who was working against her? And most importantly, how far was Grayson willing to go to destroy her? Little did she know, the answers would come sooner, and in a far more shocking way than she ever imagined. Clara's frustration reached its peak when she realized the leaks weren't random. They were calculated, deliberate, and coming from someone close to her. It wasn't just Grayson working against her, there was a mole within Apex Solutions. The betrayal stung deeply, but Clara refused to let it break her. Instead, she channeled her anger into action. With the help of the private investigator she'd hired, Clara uncovered a trail leading to one of Marcus's trusted advisors, a man named Daniel who had been secretly on Grayson's payroll for years. Armed with evidence, Clara confronted Marcus in his office late one evening. "Daniel's been feeding Grayson information," she said, sliding a folder across his desk. Inside were documents detailing Daniel's communications with Grayson's team, along with timestamps and financial records proving his involvement. "He's been sabotaging us from the inside." Marcus stared at the files, his face pale with shock. "I can't believe this," he muttered under his breath. Then, looking up at Clara, he added, "Thank you for finding this. Without you, we might never have known." Clara nodded, though her expression remained steely. "We need to act fast. If Grayson finds out we're onto him, he'll retaliate harder than ever." Together, they devised a plan. Using the evidence against Daniel, they orchestrated a sting operation to expose not only him but also Grayson's unethical practices. They leaked falsified intel back to Daniel, making it appear as though Clara and Marcus were planning a risky expansion that would leave Apex vulnerable. When Daniel passed the fake information to Grayson, they recorded every interaction, ensuring they had irrefutable proof of collusion. The trap worked perfectly. Within days, Grayson's attempts to exploit the supposed weakness led to a public scandal when news broke about his illegal tactics. Regulatory bodies launched investigations into Grayson and company, and soon enough, his once mighty empire began crumbling under the weight of lawsuits and bad press. Meanwhile, Daniel was arrested, and Marcus wasted no time cleaning house at Apex. He promoted Clara to Chief Operating Officer, entrusting her with full authority over the company's strategic direction. Her colleagues, inspired by her resilience and leadership, rallied around her, solidifying her position as a force to be reckoned with. Months later, Clara stood on the rooftop terrace of Apex Solutions headquarters, gazing out at the city skyline bathed in golden sunset hues. The air smelled crisp and clean, free of the tension that had plagued her for so long. She sipped a glass of champagne, celebrating not only Apex's record-breaking quarterly earnings but also her personal victory. "You've done incredible work, Clara," Marcus said, joining her by the railing. "Not just for the company, but for yourself. You've earned this." She smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "It wasn't easy, but I learned something important along the way. My worth isn't defined by what others think of me. It's defined by what I do, and how I rise after being knocked down." Marcus raised his glass in a toast. "To rising above." "To rising above," Clara echoed, clinking her glass against his. As the celebration continued below them, Clara allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. She thought about all the challenges she'd faced, the laughter, the dismissals, the betrayals, and realized they had shaped her into someone stronger, wiser, and unafraid to fight for what she deserved. Later that night, as she walked home beneath a canopy of stars, Clara felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She had reclaimed her power, proven her value, and built a future brighter than anything she'd imagined. And while the scars of her journey would always remain, they served as reminders of her strength, not weaknesses to hide, but badges of honor to wear proudly. For the first time in her life, Clara knew exactly who she was: unstoppable.